Would you save the life of someone who destroyed your family if they didn't know who you were? This question would haunt Lawrence Carter for the rest of his life. But on that frozen February night, he had no idea the shy girl refilling his coffee cup was about to teach him the most heartwarming lesson about human kindness, or that he'd already ruined her life 3 years ago. The old radio in Murphy's diner crackled with warnings. Historic blizzard approaching. All residents advised to seek shelter immediately. Through the window, the sky had turned an ominous green-gray, the kind that made old-timers lock their doors and whisper prayers. George Murphy wiped down the counter with weathered hands that had seen 60 years of storms. The diner itself seemed to brace against the coming assault walls that had witnessed countless stories of heartbreak and hope, floors worn smooth by working-class feet, windows that had watched the town prosper and decline. "Sophia, honey, you need to get home. This one's going to be a monster." Sophia Miller looked up from scrubbing the last table, her brown hair escaping from its ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her gentle eyes, the kind that came from too many sleepless nights, calculating whether she could afford both electricity and her mother's heart medication this month. This shy girl who once commanded boardrooms in her NYU business classes now commanded nothing but sympathy from the occasional kind customer. She glanced at the faded photo tucked behind the register, her father's smiling face taken just months before the cancer diagnosis. "Just let me finish, George. Please. Mom's alone, and if I don't get these hours..." George studied her with fatherly concern. He'd watched this inspirational young woman transform from a bright-eyed teen with limitless dreams to someone who carried impossible burdens with grace. "Your mama would want you safe, child. My mama needs her medication more than she needs me safe," Sophia replied quietly, but there was steel in her voice, the kind forged by choosing between bad and worse every single day. She touched the small cross necklace her mother had given her, a nervous habit when anxiety crept in. That's when they heard it, not one engine, but many. The sound was alien in their small town, like thunder in December. Through the frosted windows, a surreal sight emerged, 20 black luxury limousines pulling up to Murphy's diner like a parade of wealth seeking shelter from nature's fury. The door burst open with Arctic wind and men in $1,000 coats. At their head walked Lawrence Carter, his steel-gray eyes scanning the humble diner with an unreadable expression. His presence filled the room instantly, not just his physical height, but an aura of power that made the small space feel even smaller. Behind him, Anna Whitmore's diamond earrings caught the fluorescent lights as she surveyed the worn booths with undisguised contempt. "This place looks like it should be condemned," Anna announced, her voice slicing through the warm air. She pulled out a handkerchief to wipe the booth before sitting as if poverty itself might be contagious. The coffee mug in Sophia's hand trembled. 20 of America's most powerful CEOs stood in her diner faces from magazine covers and business channels. Combined, they controlled more wealth than some small countries. Her hands shook as she set down the mug, steadying herself against the counter. For a moment, she was transported back to NYU, presenting her senior project to a room full of venture capitalists. But that girl was gone now, buried with her father. "It may not be much," Sophia said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying surprising strength. "But it's warm enough to keep you alive tonight." The room fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned to the waitress who dared respond to Anna Whitmore. Lawrence Carter's gaze lingered on her, this petite young woman in a patched uniform who didn't cower before power. Something about her quiet dignity sparked an unfamiliar feeling in his chest, like a memory of warmth he'd forgotten existed. George cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of decades. "Storm's got everything else shut down for 50 miles. Highways already closed. You folks are lucky we stayed open." lucky. The word hung in the air like bitter irony. These titans of industry were now at the mercy of a rundown diner and the kindness of a shy girl they'd normally never notice. But storms have a way of revealing who we really are beneath our titles. And tonight's storm would strip away more than comfort. It would expose the most heartwarming truth about human nature, that sometimes angels wear waitress uniforms, and sometimes the people who break us are the only ones who can help us heal. Someone like you doesn't even belong in the same room as us, Anna Whitmore declared, pulling her coat tighter as if poverty might be contagious. She examined Sophia like something unpleasant on her designer shoes. Do you even know who we are? The combined net worth in this room could buy this entire town 1,000 times over. Sophia met her gaze steadily, her chin lifting despite her racing heart. Years of being invisible had taught her that dignity was the one thing no one could take. You had to surrender it. Tonight, ma'am, we all belong to the same storm. Rich or poor, the cold doesn't care about your bank account. Several CEOs shifted uncomfortably. Thomas Chen, the tech mogul, actually smiled slightly. Lawrence Carter found himself studying this shy girl with newfound interest. There was something inspirational about her quiet refusal to be diminished. Bold words for someone in your position. Richard Sterling from Sterling Industries muttered frantically, checking his dead phone. Human words, George corrected from behind the counter, his voice sharp. Now you folks better settle in. This storm's just getting started. And Sophia here knows this place better than anyone might want to start showing some appreciation. As if nature itself responded, the lights flickered once, twice, then died. Complete darkness swallowed the diner. Someone screamed. A chair crashed over. The composed facades of 20 executives shattered instantly. Get me a signal, Anna's voice shrieked. I need extraction immediately. I have a board meeting in Tokyo. The towers are down, another panicked voice replied. Everything's down. But Sophia moved through the darkness with practiced ease. Her hands found candles in familiar drawers, matches in her apron pocket. She'd memorized every inch of this place, every creaky floorboard, every stubborn drawer, every draft that whistled through old windows. One by one, small flames bloomed across the diner. She'd navigated darkness before, when the power was cut, when they couldn't afford the bills. This was familiar territory. Everyone, please remain calm and sit down, she said, her soft voice somehow commanding attention. Panic wastes energy, and we need to conserve heat. Mr. Chen, could you help move these tables away from the windows? Mr. Sterling, there's an emergency kit under the third booth. Could you check if the flashlights work? She orchestrated the space with surprising efficiency. These people who commanded thousands were suddenly taking direction from a waitress and seemed grateful for the guidance. Lawrence found himself mesmerized by her movements, graceful despite exhaustion, purposeful despite the chaos around her. She moved like a dancer who'd learned her steps through hardship rather than training. You've managed crises before, Lawrence observed when she paused near his table, a streak of dust on her cheek from retrieving blankets. Every day, Mr. Carter, though, usually on a smaller scale. When you grow up without much, you learn to see 3 moves ahead, always preparing for what might go wrong. She paused, considering whether to say more. My father taught me that. He said the poor can't afford to be surprised by life, we have to see it coming. He was struck by the matter-of-fact way she stated it without self-pity or bitterness. Just truth. She distributed the blankets she'd found, old, mismatched, some patched like her uniform, but clean and warm. Each blanket had a story she knew by heart. The quilt from George's late wife. The army surplus blanket from a veteran who'd passed last winter. The children's blanket with faded cartoon characters that she'd bought at Goodwill with her first tips. When she came to Lawrence's booth, Only one blanket remained, the one she kept in the back, for particularly cold nights when she had to sleep in the diner because she couldn't afford gas to get home. "Take it," he insisted. "I'm fine. Moving around keeps me warm." "You're shivering." She was though she'd tried to hide it. Her thin uniform offered no protection against the plummeting temperature, but she draped the blanket over his shoulders anyway, her touch surprisingly gentle. For a moment, Lawrence caught a whiff of lavender simple soap, but somehow comforting. "Why are you doing this?" Lawrence caught her wrist, softly feeling her rapid pulse. "Why give everything away?" She looked at him with those exhausted brown eyes, and for a moment he saw depths of kindness that seemed impossible in someone so young. "My father used to say that we're all just walking each other home. Tonight that walk got a little harder, that's all. This is what people do, we help each other, especially when someone's afraid." "But you must be afraid too." He pressed, genuinely curious. "Of course I am," she admitted quietly. "But fear is a luxury I can't afford. Someone has to stay calm. Someone always has to stay calm." Then she was gone, helping George in the kitchen. But Lawrence noticed something others missed when food was distributed. Sophia didn't eat. She claimed she'd already had dinner, but he saw through the lie. She gave her portion to Harold Clemens, the elderly CEO of Hartman Enterprises who had diabetes. "Thank you, dear." Harold said, his voice thick with emotion. "My granddaughter's about your age, works 3 jobs to pay for college. I forget sometimes that there are people like you and her holding the world together while we're making deals." Sophia smiled, the first genuine smile Lawrence had seen from her. "Your granddaughter sounds strong. You must be proud." "I am. But I'm ashamed too. I've made more money this year than she'll see in a lifetime, and I've never once offered to help with her tuition. Too worried she'd become soft, lose her drive." He looked at the simple sandwich Sophia had given him. But maybe hardship isn't what builds character. Maybe kindness is. Around midnight, as the storm intensified, Sophia discovered George's old emergency generator in the basement. She'd noticed it months ago, during inventory, filed it away in her mental map of resources. Within minutes, she had it running, providing just enough power for heat and radio. The weather report confirmed the storm would last until dawn. "How did you know about that generator?" George asked, amazed. "I pay attention," she said simply. "You taught me that notice everything, waste nothing, help everyone. The forgotten things are usually the most useful when crisis hits." Lawrence overheard a conversation between Sophia and George that made his chest tighten. "Your mama's medication. Did you get it filled?" George asked quietly. "Tomorrow after my shift." "That prescription ran out 2 days ago, Sophia. Don't lie to me. She has enough for tonight. These folks need help now. Mom would understand. She always says we're rich in what we give, not what we keep." But George wasn't finished. "How much do you need?" $300, she whispered. "I'll have 200 after tonight's shift, and I can probably borrow from who everyone you know is as broke as you are." She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. Lawrence absorbed this information, along with what his assistant had sent before phones died. Sophia Miller, top of her class at NYU's business school, dropped out senior year. But the report didn't capture this, her remarkable ability to lead through service to maintain grace under impossible pressure. That young woman is something special. Harold Clemens said to George, watching Sophia comfort a younger CEO who was having a panic attack about missing his daughter's recital. George's eyes were sad but proud. She gave up everything. Her professors called her brilliant, said she had the best business instincts they'd ever seen. One of them even offered to pay her tuition if she'd come back. But when her daddy got sick and their family business